Hello and welcome to On the Agenda, a semi-monthly podcast by the City of Reno that quickly updates you on actions taken at the most recent council meeting and checks in with various departments to keep you up to date with happenings within City Hall. I'm AJ from the City of Reno's communications team, and with me, as always, Reno City Manager Jackie Bryants. Hello, Reno City Manager Jackie Bryants.
Hi, AJ. Looks like we're getting back on a rhythm again.
I know, we're on episode 11 now. We have so many under our belts. We're pros at this point.
We are getting there.
We're
we got a lot planned.
Yeah, let's call up some radio stations. Be like, hey, give us a show.
I don't know about that.
Today's topic quietly powers a big part of our community. But before we get into our main topic, let's review a couple of actions that were taken at the August 13th council meeting. With those, Reno City Manager Jackie Bryants.
Yes, so we had a robust agenda as usual, where council approved contracts and funding for a variety of projects, including a new fire engine, street repairs, school zone safety beacons. Those are the flashing lights that you have to help protect the kids, and sewer maintenance and park improvements. We also had a hearing for an alley abandonment between Reno Avenue and West Taylor Street, just east of Arlington Avenue. This request was made by the Reno Housing Authority. They're planning on building affordable housing project right there, and they needed the City of Reno alley in order to be able to utilize that space as they build out the new project, and council approved that.
Thank you for the updates. If you want to read more, you can always check out our highlights at reno.gov/news. Now, on to our big topic. During this week's meeting, council heard a presentation about C-Tax, also known as Consolidated Tax, also known as things that make my head hurt because it's math, and I'm not very good at math. While you may not know what C-Tax is, it funds essential city services like police, fire, parks, and more. To help us better understand this in a way that makes sense to someone like me, we are joined by Vicki Van Buren, Director of Finance, and Urban Economist, that's not a word, Economist, Jason Gortari. Hello, Vicki and Jason. Thank you for being on the show.
Hi, AJ.
Thank you for having us.
Vicki, it's your third time. You're a pro. We're going to add you to the name of the podcast.
Don't know if I'm a pro at the podcast, but I enjoy being here. Thank you.
So let's start with the basics. Jason, can you give us a quick explanation of what C-Tax is and where does it come from?
The Consolidated Tax, also known as the C-Tax, was established nearly 30 years ago by the state in 1997. The idea behind the system was to take 6 different taxes, combine them into a single revenue pool, and split it amongst local governments and districts fairly. Those 6 taxes include 2 different components of sales tax. There's a liquor tax, cigarette tax, tax from sale and transfer of property, and a tax that you pay each year when you register your vehicle. C-Tax distributions are managed by the Nevada Department of Taxation, and payments are made monthly to local governments and special districts throughout the state.
So basically, it's like all of our state taxes, then there's a little portion of that is consolidated taxes.
It's a set aside
portion
of taxes. There's a variety of other state taxes that go into the state general fund and a variety of other funds at the state.
Okay, that makes sense. Vicki, so let's talk a little bit about why C-Tax is so important to Reno residents and what services does it fund?
Sure, of course. C-Tax is about a third of the revenues in the city's general fund. So when you think about that, 1 out of every $3 in the general fund is made up just from this revenue source. The general fund is how the city of Reno pays for critical services like police, fire, emergency response, parks, and other services that the city does. And so when consumer spending slows, the city receives less revenue to support those critical services.
Oh, that's a little scary now. Okay, now we're getting into it. So, Jason, you said C-Tax is collected across the states. Do the taxes that are collected in Reno, do they come back to Reno? Can you walk us through how that distribution works?
Oftentimes, people don't realize that there's a difference between state revenues and local revenues when they pay a tax. Generally speaking, if you purchase something in Washoe County, the revenue does stay in Washoe County from a sales tax perspective. However, if you buy something in Reno, the dollars may come back to Washoe County, the region, but they won't necessarily come back to the city. Instead, they're split up amongst local governments and districts in the region based on a formula. And in a typical year, Reno receives about 31% of that total bucket of revenue in Washoe County.
So, Jason, one of the things that we learned with our presentation last Wednesday was that there are 6 different components of C-Tax, 2 of which are sales tax specifically. And it was fascinating the percentage of the total sales tax makes up in the entire C-Tax bucket. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that's so important?
Yes. Sales tax is the primary component of C-Tax. When you look at the total pie statewide, it represents about 87%. And in Washoe County, it represents 84%. So when you think about C-Tax, you're mostly talking about sales tax. However, there are those additional pieces that help support the overall pot.
Okay, so sometimes people in summary, they say, well, C-Tax is really just sales tax. And that it's not entirely accurate, but it is because it reflects so much of the revenue that, well over the majority, almost the entire bucket comes from sales.
That's a great point. It's important to acknowledge the other pieces, but the majority is coming from sales tax.
So could you provide an example to help us understand how much sales tax there is received versus what's collected overall?
I think a great example is the example that we heard in our presentation and that we've been using in our public outreach is what the city receives on $100 taxable sales transaction. Let's say you, AJ, go to a local hardware store in Reno, spend $100 on a lawnmower, and you pay $8.27 in sales tax. Only 69 cents of that is coming back to Reno. So to put that in perspective, you pay $8.27, less than $1 is coming back to Reno. So a very small portion.
And where does the rest of that money go? Because this project started because people would ask me, what are you doing with all the sales tax that we pay? And I'm like, well, I don't think we collect it all, but I need to do the work to figure it out. How much do we actually get? And as it turns out, of the $8.27 that a person pays on $100 goods, Reno receives 69 cents. Where does the rest go?
About half goes back to the state of Nevada to support a variety of their programs and state education. There's other local purposes that it supports, and then a small portion goes to the C-Tax formula where it's distributed using the formula, and it ultimately ends up being 69 cents that comes back to Reno.
That's interesting. So just again for listeners, if you spend $100, $8 and some change goes to the state, but then 69 cents comes back to Reno.
Yep, about $2.25 is going to the C-Tax formula, and then of that $2.25, 69 cents is coming to Reno.
Oh, wow. That's, I have thoughts on this. So, Vicki, we're going to change to you now. What factors could impact Reno's C-Tax revenue in the future, and how do we plan for those changes in our budget process?
Yes, so as Jason mentioned, the majority, over 80%, as he mentioned, of C-Tax is made up of sales tax. The smaller pieces of it, liquor, cigarette tax, vehicle registration, and the transfer of property. That, as Jackie mentioned, I think 17% of it is that small piece of it. So the majority is sales tax. And so anything that impacts consumer confidence and spending will have a huge impact on what we receive. This could include, inflation, increases in cost of goods, interest rates, just consumer confidence in general impacts that. As consumers spend less, whether it's residents or visitors, the state collects less on those taxes, and it results in less revenues for the city and the counties in Nevada.
So how do we plan for this if we can't control these factors?
So we use historical data, state projections, and we look at the economy and do economic analysis to forecast future revenues as accurately as we can. Every month, we're looking at everything and providing updates, and we do it constantly. We monitor not just C-Tax, but all revenue streams to make sure that those are trending as normal, because every revenue stream is going to have different things that impact it. Today, we were just talking about C-Tax, but we do have that in other areas as well. And to maintain a balanced budget, we're constantly monitoring all of these revenues and making adjustments with the expenses.
And Vicki, we don't sell things, so we can't really raise the price of goods. We don't control the property tax that is assessed. We don't control the tax rate that is assessed. We really are the recipients of revenue.
Right.
And the only control we really have, the only levers that we can push and pull on is expenses.
That's absolutely correct.
So whenever we start to see trends that reflect declining or revenues that aren't growing as fast as our expenses, we have to make cuts.
We do. And as we've talked about, in these podcasts before, we've talked about most of our most of our expenditures, over 80% are people. So we are a service industry. That's what we provide to the community. And so we are very challenged when we have to look at expenditures.
And as a reminder to the public, in the general fund, yes, about 81% of the total expenses are people. Of that total general fund amount, how much is public safety? That's police, fire, and dispatch.
For those departments, in general, it's around 65% of the general fund is spent just on that emergency response.
Yeah, so it really does become difficult to balance the budget, forecast, especially with volatile C-Tax. It's about a third of our budget, and it is something that is the most volatile. And with expenses that are predominantly public safety. So we really work hard to try and balance all of the different interests.
That makes a lot of sense. Before we go, is there anything that either of you want to make sure people know about C-Tax or our budget or how we approach C-Tax?
If you'd like to learn more about C-Tax, visit reno.gov/C-Tax, and you'll find a variety of tools to dig into this complicated subject.
That wraps up our conversation on C-Tax and how it helps fund essential services here in the city of Reno. I think the biggest takeaway from this has been that if you spend $100, less than $1 comes back to us.
So if you spend $100 and you pay sales tax of $8.27, only 69 cents is returned to Reno.
That is crazy. What if I don't pay my taxes?
Then you don't leave with your goods.
Before we sign off, Jackie, tell us a little bit about the next agenda for the council meeting on August 27th.
Sure. So the next thing we have coming up, or next things we have coming up, we have a presentation from the Nevada Housing Coalition on recent legislative actions and future planning. Housing continues to be a priority for this council, so we are constantly working on updating everyone on what's next there. Vicki will be presenting a financial update on the status of the budget. We're hopeful that by August 27th, we will have had all revenues come in to close out fiscal year 25. As a reminder, the fiscal year begins July 1 of every year, and then it ends June 30th. So right now, we're still collecting revenues from fiscal year 25, even though we're in fiscal year 26. So hopefully we'll have all those revenues in, and Vicki can close that out and update council accordingly. Staff's going to provide an update on public feedback regarding the proposed sewer user rate increase and the sewer utility assistance program. We're proposing expanding that program for individuals who have trouble paying their sewer bill. So you'll hear a little bit more about that.
If you want more info, you can always check out reno.gov/meetings. And as Jason said, check out reno.gov/CTAX. That's C as cat, TAX.